Hey everybody, this edition of Lionheart Radio is brought to you by the world's first creatine coffee. Each scoop is a full cup of a Colombian Arabica bean coffee infused with 5 grams of a creatine monohydrate. Now here's the deal, guys. A lot of people have differing opinions about creatine, and unfortunately a lot of really shitty supplement companies have tried to sell it to kids that want to get big, and they package it as some kind of steroid alternative, and they tell you if you cycle it and if you stack it, then you'll gain a bunch of muscle mass. And at the end of the day, none of that is true. What is true is that it's one of the most studied and beneficial supplements on the market for strength, recovery, and endurance. So whether you're a runner, whether you are a strength athlete, or whether you're somebody that wants to enhance cognitive function and just feel healthier in everyday life, a pharmaceutical-grade creatine monohydrate is going to help get you there. Go to www.creatinecoffee.com to learn what all the hype is about. And now, on to the show. All right, welcome back to Lionheart Radio. I'm your host, Rick Alexander, founder of Blue Aviv in San Diego, California. And today I've got a new co-host with me, Jenny Blake.
Hey guys, my name is Jenny Blake, and I am a nutrition coach with Lifeline Performance, and I'm also a bikini and figure competitor.
And today we are finally doing another podcast in person in San Diego, California. And I'm joined by Bryan Boorstein, who is the co-founder of San Diego Athletics. He's also an online trainer, and the thing about Bryan is that he has a methodology that I think will be very counterintuitive to what a lot of CrossFit coaches typically try to program. And without getting too far into it, Bryan, thanks for being on.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm super amped to be here and look forward to the chat.
Yeah, for sure. So San Diego Athletics is a CrossFit gym, correct?
We are, yeah. Originally, we were CrossFit PB.
Mm-hmm.
We still compete at regionals, and we do our CrossFit stuff as CrossFit PB. But around 2013, maybe 2014, we changed our official name to San Diego Athletics to kind of reach a bit of a broader audience.
Okay, yeah. So I wanted to get into that a little bit, just the business decision behind changing your name and like kind of separating yourself from CrossFit. So there's obviously a lot of positive benefits to being associated with affiliate CrossFit,
yeah.
Right? And so what were the benefits that I guess outweighed having HQ full force behind you?
Well, I mean, so...
And I don't if it gets too personal.
No, it's fine. So I didn't really think that HQ was gonna necessarily not back us with the name change. Like I know Invictus has done a similar thing with Invictus Fitness, and there's not CrossFit anywhere on their website. We actually did it right around the same time, if not slightly before them, but unfortunately it did have a little bit of an impact with HQ. Castro, I guess, was kind of emailing with one of our trainers at the time who was on the legal team at HQ.
Okay.
And he would send her like copies of our newsletter, which for some reason he was subscribed to, and copies of like our social media posts, and just like very kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of hating on us a little bit.
Yeah.
And he used to come by when we were CrossFit PB. He probably came by 2 to 3 times a year to just like swim in, say what's up, work out, or just kind of see our events as they were going down. And as soon as the name change happened, it was like no more Castro ever. He literally came in here once, maybe 2 years ago, because he was doing this box tour of San Diego gyms or something like that. And I think he saved us for last.
Really?
Like he literally came in, he was like, yeah, you're my 79th gym that I'm seeing or something like that. And I was just like,
a little tired.
Dude, you don't got to be so mad about it. Like, you have 13,000 boxes, and we're still an affiliate. We still pay you money.
Right. So that's an interesting thing, and I was actually talking to somebody about that this morning. So CrossFit has created this tribe, and it's such a strong tribe. But one of the things with them is if you're not with us, you're against us, right? They almost like portray that in their messaging and just how they interact. And you see the same thing not even with gyms, but with other companies that are trying to, maybe they grew up in CrossFit, like, I don't want to get into LiftSort, but they had a thing where, that's just crazy to get into right now, but they had a thing, like, they're just a prime example. Like,
they started at our gym,
I
too.
do, that's why I said I don't want to get
okay.
into it. I don't know, it fucking popped up in my head. but what I'm getting at, though, is if you're a company that, necessarily, I feel like if CrossFit HQ doesn't endorse you, there's such a strong cult-like community. They're very polarizing in that way.
I agree, yeah. So, like I kind of was saying, we didn't really expect to be alienated in that manner. But the reasoning, I guess, behind why we made the decision was twofold, I guess. We had a series of people come in for a number of months in a row that kind of were like, yeah, you guys look cool, like I think I like what you're doing, but the CrossFit thing's really scary. Like I read this article on Huffington Post about, you know, how bad it is for you, or like I know a friend who knows a friend who did it and now their shoulder is broken, or like some very uneducated statement like that. And obviously that doesn't even give credit to the fact that 90% of CrossFit gyms probably don't do things correctly, and then 10% are awesome. The other side of that for us was that, like Jenny's doing with the bikini stuff, figure competitions, I started wanting to do that around the same time. So alongside with me training for this men's physique show, we wanted to start like a kind of bodybuilding aesthetic based program. And Jenny was here during some of that time as well. So we were running two programs next to each other. We had our CrossFit program, we had our bodybuilding program. We even had two coaches so that it wouldn't create any sort of issues there. And we would run them at the same time, and the bodybuilding program grew and people loved it. And it was awesome. It gives people a kind of different way of training that's still effective. And for us, that was great.
So I get really interested in, and so I'm the same way. I started in CrossFit, but you know, my interests change as you like figure out what you like and what you don't like, and sometimes you just get burnt out of doing one thing over and over, which CrossFit kind of mitigates because it is there's a lot of different disciplines.
Super broad,
But even that, like, my ADD prevailed and I had to go do something else. But so even with that, my question is for you, like when you're offering this bodybuilding, did you have CrossFitters that were doing the bodybuilding portion? And then what kind of crossover benefits did you see from that?
Yeah, I think a lot of the people that started doing the program probably got involved in it because I was so passionate about what I was doing, and I think a lot of that kind of transferred over to them. Like I would sit there and I'd be talking about how excited I am with like this new training style that I'm doing and with the nutrition approach that I'm taking, and I think that people felt that and it impacted them, so they were like, okay, whatever, I'll give this program a try.
I'm probably a prime example of that because you started up the bodybuilding classes, you know, I did a cycle through it, and then you actually competed in a bodybuilding competition, and then I know I went because I was super excited about it because I was like, wow, he just dedicated a lot of time to this, and then also in the back of my head I was like, ooh, I might be a little interested in this. So it definitely motivated me to go take that route.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it was you and Nikki Spurgeon did the same thing, and Trish Davis did it as well. So actually, it was mostly girls. We didn't have any guys follow me, but they did the bodybuilding.
No, you had a guy,
Daniel Linnaeus. Yeah, Daniel did it as well. And then he got so passionate about it, kind of like you, that he actually stopped doing CrossFit. You kind of came back to CrossFit temporarily. He just straight up quit. He was like, "This is my thing. Like, I don't want to learn to snatch. That's too hard." And so he did the bodybuilding thing, and I think the as you were saying about, you were asking about transfer and kind of carry over into the program. And when I programmed the bodybuilding class, I tried to make sure that we were focusing primarily on compound functional movements. At the end of each session, we would have like some isolation stuff with like some flies and some curls and tricep extensions and all that. But the base of the program was still big movements. And I used a lot of the Olympic lifting movements in breaking them down into little pieces so that there wasn't actually much lost when people would leave the bodybuilding program and go back to CrossFit. So like, for example, one of the movements that even to this day I program for people all the time is a hang muscle snatch.
Okay.
And a hang muscle snatch, we do it for kind of higher reps, like a 15, 12, 9 type thing. And it's an incredible bodybuilding movement. You get a lot of the upper back and trap, you engage the hips and the glutes, and then you still get the overhead movement of kind of the lockout and the press out at top. And people would come out of that and they'd be hang muscle snatching what used to be like their power snatch weight. So technically it's obviously a little bit different, and you have to kind of adjust to moving back under the bar when you're used to just popping your hips and squeezing your glutes. But a movement like that is great. We did a bunch of high pulls, and not like an upright row, but more of like a hip-driven high pull, So you can handle a lot more load than you would be able to in just an upright row without any leg drive in there.
Mm-hmm. And from like the snatch position?
From the snatch position, or even the hang clean position too, depending on the width of the grip.
So you're getting like the shrug and the third pull feel.
For sure, exactly.
Okay.
A lot of the second into the third pull without, I guess the third pull would be defined as moving under the bar.
Well,
so
right,
I mean the same type of momentum creation.
Okay.
Another thing that you shared with me, I guess it's probably a while ago, is tempos and how to use tempo for CrossFit workout versus bodybuilding workout. Can you kind of share with us your method behind that?
Yeah, I mean in CrossFit you're always trying to do things as fast as possible, right? And whether it's a back squat where you're just dropping to the bottom of the hole and bouncing back out, like people love to do this, right? Because you can handle more weight,
right?
And it's less time under tension.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So tempo, you're talking about, just for the listeners like that might not be familiar. When you're talking tempo, you're talking the actual like pace that you're moving.
The speed, the speed of your reps.
Right.
So in CrossFit, every rep is meant to be done as quick as possible, and I think the smart coaches in CrossFit now are moving away from that for strength work. I see a lot of coaches now, myself included, that are programming like deadlifts where you have to do the negative. You have to lower the bar under control. You're doing your back squats at like a 3-0x1, which would be like 3 seconds down, no pause at the bottom, explode back up, and then a 1 second pause at the top. Stuff like that. And aside from targeting different muscle fibers than you would doing it just as quickly as you can, it also forces better form. And I think that the big thing you see in CrossFit when it's done improperly is knee pain, shoulder pain, a bunch of joints that are overreacting to the stimulus that's put upon them.
Yep.
And when you can control tempo a little bit, then you're able to ensure range of motion is good, you're able to ensure that movement patterns are good. Like we've all seen in the back squat how at the bottom we always get the arches caving in with a lot of our athletes. I would say 80% of the people in the gym can't reach the bottom of a squat without some form of arch coming in. So a tempo allows you to really feel where that moment is where form begins to sacrifice. And then you ascend up out of the hole right before that point.
Yeah. And when you talk hypertrophy and strength, really you want to increase time under tension, so it makes more sense to...
Yeah. Time under tension I don't think is necessarily even about the individual set that you're doing, like whether your time under tension is 40 seconds or 20 seconds. I think it's even more time under tension over the course of the volume for the day. So like Brad Schoenfeld is a researcher. Have you guys heard of him? He does a bunch of muscle research and stuff like that.
Okay.
I was just listening to a podcast with him the other day where he was talking about that exact concept, how he did a study where it compared bodybuilding rep schemes, which are like 8 to 15 reps, versus like a powerlifting rep scheme, which would be 3 to 5 reps.
Okay.
And your 3 to 5 rep sets are like maybe 10 to 20 seconds in time under tension, where your 12 to 15 rep sets are like 45 to 60 seconds. And he was like, the results at the end of this study were identical, assuming that volume for time under tension was equal. So if you did 5 reps, you would need to do more sets than you would if you were doing 15 reps if your goal was hypertrophy.
Okay.
Whereas the powerlifting world, they don't care about hypertrophy, they just want to get strong.
Right.
So he was able to find that by doing sets of 3 to 5 reps, you can still get just as much hypertrophy as you can in the bodybuilding rep ranges, you just have to do more sets.
Okay. So if we break that down to its simplest form, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're looking for maximal strength, right, you want time under tension at a higher percentage of your 1 rep max.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas with hypertrophy, it's really, that's not nearly as important, right?
No, it's not.
It's
I
just
mean,
2% of
hypertrophy is just get the lactic acid into the muscles and make it burn.
Yeah. And so from that perspective, then the eccentric makes even more sense,
Yes.
right? Because that's going to really tear you up. At least for my...
Exactly.
I've done like I did a work, some kind of program, I can't remember, back in the Stay Classy days, but it like focused on the eccentric movement of the lift, and in CrossFit you never do that, right? You're always push press, it's coming back down as fast as you can bring it down. Sometimes you're even pulling it down.
Yeah, thrusters a perfect example.
Yeah.
And then for Olympic lifting and stuff, you just see people drop the bar from the top, which is probably safer. So in Olympic lifting, I'm not opposed to that. Like I'm not going to be like, do the eccentric in your snatch. Like that's kind of silly. But you do, like you're doing like a CrossFit WOD.
Right.
And it's like Isabel. Unless you're one of the elite athletes, like the best pacing strategy for Isabel is probably to do singles.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's not really hypertrophy, it's conditioning with a little bit of like kind of CP system, like creatine phosphate system, and you're just trying to get through it as quickly as you can.
So when you program for individuals, so you program for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
So when you program for people, how much are you mixing these different methodologies in order to get a desired result?
It depends on what the athlete's goal is.
Okay.
I've actually had a number of CrossFitters though come to me now and be like, hey, I've heard you have a kind of like new twist on the way that programming is done. And I don't know how the word got around, but I have a girl in Temecula area, Amanda Borelli, who's at this point a top 50 in the region. She's not necessarily like an individual regional level competitor, but she's awesome and she works hard, and she was on the Ruination team this year. But she was kind of burnt out on the CrossFit thing about a year ago, maybe a little more, and she came to me with that same issue. So I put her on what has now become like my hybrid program.
Okay.
And it's a mix of Olympic lifting, bodybuilding, strict strength movements, as well as conditioning pieces that are kind of based around like what a CrossFit WOD or Metcon would be like.
Okay.
So this program has been phenomenal. It probably involves Olympic lifting 2 to 3 days a week, some position work, as well as some straight up like not 1RM, but like singles and doubles for technique work and stuff like that. A lot of the days involve alternating sets of like strict weighted dips with strict weighted pull-ups. We include a lot of bent over rows. We do a lot of strict overhead pressing. We do strict handstand pushing. And the kipping stuff is primarily only in WODs. Okay. So the EMOMs and stuff like that are all strict. So a lot of the CrossFitters that have come to me and been like, hey, but if I'm not like doing these EMOMs and practicing these movement patterns, like I'm gonna lose them, right? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. Like we'll still be doing them in WODs. You'll still do the movement pattern. But what we really found was that all of the strict work that was done transfers over extremely effectively to the kipping variation once they go back to it. So people now are doing strict pull-ups with like 45 pounds for 5 reps, females. Yep. And guys are doing them with 90 pounds. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the cycle, we'll test and do some stuff like that. And the way that they're able to manifest that new strength in the strict movements into the kipping variations, they're like, oh my God, I feel so much stronger. Yeah. And it's super cool.
So that's actually worth mentioning too, because in my experience, trying to transfer strength the other way from kipping to strict doesn't work.
Nope.
And that's maybe a huge flaw with the CrossFit methodology, right? Is if a lot of times I've seen coaches we'll just use female, getting pull-ups is usually a difficult thing out of the gate. And so they'll have them doing banded kipping, right? And then the next thing they're doing is actual kipping. Right. And so I've literally seen a girl that can do a muscle up on a bar and not do 3 strict pull-ups.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we have girls that can do 5 to 10 kipping pull-ups in a row that can't do a strict pull-up. And that's crazy. Like the amount of shearing that goes under your shoulder joint when you're dropping, again, no negative.
Just bottoming
when you're you're bottoming the joint out at the bottom of the pull-up just so you can slam your hips up forcefully and get another pull-up.
Yep.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I think the hybrid method is starting to become a little more popular because people are seeing that and realizing that. Have you heard of hybrid performance at all?
I have heard of them, yeah. I don't know a whole lot about it. I know the main one that I've heard about recently has been the functional bodybuilding from Marcus Philly. Mm-hmm. So I think that is kind of along the same lines as what I'm doing. I didn't really look at his program, but I know it's becoming more popular. I mean, even at the level 1 now, they don't teach a kipping pull-up or a kipping muscle-up until you can do a strict muscle-up or a strict pull-up. So even HQ is catching on.
Yeah, and the problem is like that. So many coaches that came up in like the 2000, we'll say 8, 9, 10, 11, they get like stuck in their ways and they're doing crazy stuff like that. So, but if you're a coach listening to this, like, I mean, I'm not one of those people that blame injuries on CrossFit. Like, I heard some quote, it's like, you have to be a complete asshole to blame some internal problem on an external factor, right? Like, It can be coaching, it can be the way that you worked up to it. There's a lot of things it can be, but to be like, oh, it's this methodology, that's kind of like, you're probably just not applying it right.
You're taking the easy way out. So you're trying to use a scapegoat.
Right. So, and when you say hybrid, you're saying that's catching on. You just mean the amalgamation of different methodologies.
Right, like mixture of bodybuilding and CrossFit, which I've noticed is just the mind-muscle connection.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said before, everything is do it really fast and lift more weight and do it as fast as you can. And so now that I'm having to slow down and really think about mind-muscle connection and focusing on that muscle, I think that's going to roll over when I do decide to go back to CrossFit and feeling out different
A perfect example is the bench press, right? Like the way that most people bench press, it's really just anterior delt exercise. It's triceps and front delt.
Yep.
And when you actually sit there and you're in the bodybuilding mindset, like you're taught, Jenny, to really feel your chest working. So when you do a bench press, you're not just here and you're like, I'm gonna lift this bar up no matter what it takes. You're thinking, okay, I gotta squeeze my chest, and now you're actually making that mind-muscle connection, and you're using the proper muscles to be able to create the power.
versus having my hips flown up to the ceiling, just anything to get it up.
Just because it's an ego game at that point.
Right. And the other thing is, too, even if you're not worried about maybe developing certain muscle groups with an exercise, the other aspect is, like, if you can't do a movement slowly, like we were talking about, you don't own that movement, you know, you're essentially renting it, and you're waiting to just get a slap there or something like that, you know.
Right.
So earlier you mentioned that the word has kind of got out of this unique style of programming that you're doing. Are you talking about more of the hybrid method, or what are you referring to when you say unique?
Yeah, I mean, the hybrid method, I think, starts it. That's probably like my bread and butter right now, is I have a number of different people that have really kind of jumped on this bandwagon, and it's also the program right now that I'm portraying on my my programming page on Instagram. It's a Bees Crew Training.
Okay.
And so I've been putting out every day. All I do is post programming. There's no like personal posts or like pictures with my wife or anything like that.
Right.
It's just programming. And so the cycle that we're going through right now is actually a version of one of my hybrid programs. I have 4 of them now. And so one of them is being released right now. I just finished up week 3 on my Instagram page, so we'll be starting week 4 of a 13-week cycle tomorrow.
And you're posting the daily workout? Daily
workout, yeah. There's 5 days a week of training. So I'll be like, hey, this workout is for Thursday or Friday, depending on your schedule, when you take your rest days. But there's 5 days a week of programming being posted, and I'll post one every day or every other day.
And what's the ultimate goal of that program?
To get people smart, intelligent training. Just try to show the world that like you can do CrossFit or feel like you're doing CrossFit without having to feel like you're just doing a lot every day.
Right.
So some days there's some more Olympic lifting than other days. Pretty much every day has some strict strength training, and it follows a linear progression of sorts, where you're just trying to add 2 to 5 pounds a week onto most of the lifts.
Yep.
And that probably benefits performance, right? It benefits aesthetics, because most people want both of those.
Absolutely.
So you're kind of hitting it all by combining everything like that.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other kind of, so I'm almost 35 now. I'm 34. I've been doing this CrossFit thing for 9 years about, and I was training with weights for another 11 before that. So I'm at like 20 years right now. And as I'm getting older, I've really realized that recovery is super important. Like when you're 25,
right?
We all trained like idiots at 25 because you can get away with it, right? And you can still make gains, and you can go out and you can drink, and you can show up the next day and still get stronger.
Yeah.
But as I've been getting older, I've been realizing that like the ability to do things properly and using tempos and catering volume and taking rest days and doing things for the mind, like going for walks. And like I spend every Sunday after this podcast, today's Saturday, but I'm actually going to go down to the beach, and I'm going to spend an hour listening to music and stretching and sitting in the paleo chair. I guess that's what Kelly Starrett calls like the squat chair. Oh, nice. I call it the paleo chair. I'll just sit there for 10 minutes and just kind of, it's almost like half meditative and half just kind of self-therapy, but stuff like that has been so important. So a lot of the programs that I'm writing now are lower volume, especially for people that are a little bit older now. I find myself working with some masters athletes now in their 40s. So I'm taking a much lower volume approach where the quality of the movement is really the goal. Like it's not just go in there and snatch a 20-minute EMOM and see how your shoulders hold up.
And are you focusing on quality because you're looking for that longevity?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we just finished a 9-week Ollie cycle here at San Diego Athletics right after the Open. It's usually what I program, a 9-week Ollie cycle where we do a little bit less conditioning and we just bang barbells 5 days a week. And a lot of the people in the gym had fantastic results from this because they're younger.
Yeah.
And I did the cycle with incredible results in the past too. And I went through it this year and it banged up my joints.
Yeah.
My shoulders and my knees primarily. And I think there needs to be more focus on the fact that training changes as you get older. And I don't think that people put much focus on that. Like, people that are 35 and 40 are still following programs that are meant for 22-year-olds.
Right.
And coaches need to educate their clients a little bit better about the need for that type of excessive volume.
Yeah, and I think what happens is you get forced to reprioritize because your body's just going to break. And the problem is usually people just get discouraged and stop or you move on to other things. Whereas like you're saying, if you had a focus on like, hey, look, we're trying to do this for the next 20 years, right? So if that were to be the focus, you would work out a lot differently.
Yeah.
Then basically probably all 15,000 affiliates work out.
Absolutely. I mean, okay, so Jenny just pointed out that I have a kid coming 8 weeks from now. Before we were on the podcast, she was like, "Oh my God, congratulations!" Blah, blah. So that's not how she talks. That's not how she talks, by the way. And so one of the things that I'm doing personally when the kid comes, because I want to be there to be able to help my wife with the kid. I want to be able to throw a football with my kid and go running on the beach and stuff like that 15 years from now. But primarily right now is I want to be able to help my wife help the kid with the first 3 months. Like, I've heard the first 3 months is a disaster. So I'm changing my training to kind of like a 3 times a week strength training program just for me personally. And what I've found in the last 2 weeks of doing this is that my training motivation is higher than it's ever been. Like, how many times are there people that you see walk into the gym and they just look like they've been hit by a truck and they're just like, well, the programming says I have to do this today, so they spend like 30 minutes on the Airdyne, another 30 minutes rolling out and stretching with bands, and then they're like, okay, now I'm ready to train. And then they train, but you can tell that like their heart's not really in it because they just feel like they have to do it.
Yeah.
And that is like, for me, this 3 times a week thing, like even in 2 weeks of doing it, my knees have felt perfect, my shoulders are completely better, and I look forward to training.
And do you think that's because you're training less or because you've reframed the context of why you're training?
I actually think it's because I'm training less.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question, though.
Yeah.
But for the last few years, I've been a 5-day-a-week CrossFitter with Olympic lifting majority of days because I love Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
And then even on the weekends, I'll go for a bike ride. I'll do an EMOM or something that I consider like active recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not giving myself enough time to actually have any adaptations occur. And so I didn't get stronger.
Yeah.
And I see that across a lot of people. They're just like hitting the same weights every day that they go into the gym, the same movement, the same weights, because their body never has enough resources to recover and adapt.
Yep.
Are you having to change your nutrition at all because of this? Because the volume isn't as high?
It's a good question. I to be determined on that, because ultimately what my goal is right now is to gain 15 pounds. So I'm trying to continue eating the same amount that I was when I was training 5 to 6 days a week, but it's really hard. Yeah. I've never in my life had a problem eating, and now that I'm training less, it's hard to eat.
Right.
One of my favorite stories about you is that I think you've done this on multiple occasions. You sit down and have 24 perfect food bars in one sitting.
24, huh? I actually have in one day finished an entire box of perfect bars. That's 8 of them. I've had 6 in a sitting.
6 in one sitting? That's still a lot.
Yeah, it's about 2,000 calories. It's
like
kind of
20
disgusting.
grams of fat in each one.
Yeah. It's probably not healthy. My body wasn't too happy with me afterwards. But that's like the things that I could do when my training volume was so high that my body was just shouting at me to give it recovery. And it's just not feasible when the training is a little bit lower volume.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people cut back on the volume like that, they see body comp get better. Like they'll get more lean muscle mass because just from a standpoint of not producing as much cortisol, your body's not going to hang on as much
That's
fat.
such a good point. I mean, 100%. Like, I think that goes hand in hand with training motivation. Like, I guarantee those people that I referenced earlier that come in and they don't really want to train, but they feel like they have to train, they're just running on cortisol.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
Testosterone, has an inverse relationship with cortisol, right? So as cortisol rises, testosterone plummets, and I know a lot of stories of guys in the CrossFit world that wouldn't want me to name them, but have mentioned having issues in the bedroom and having energy to enjoy life, right? And isn't like the point of training, unless you're getting paid to train, isn't the point of training so that you can be better at life?
Yeah.
And yet, if you're training so much that you don't even have energy to go hang out with your friends, your kids, you go to the beach and play football or whatever it is, like, what's the point of training then?
Yeah, and I think that's a problem. For me, it got like kind of forced on me because I got so fucking burned out of like spending 6 hours in the gym every day, and then you kind of get to this point of like, what am I fucking doing here? Like, I'm not on the podium at the game, so like, what the fuck am I doing?
Right.
Like, I'm making my life suck for no reason at all. Yeah. But the problem is a lot of times people don't step back and reflect on that, I think, because they are thinking about like, because CrossFit's such a competitive thing, so there's so many competitions that people are constantly signed up for, and they want to do good in the open, and they want to make it to regionals, and it's
or even the guy next to him. They want to beat the guy who's standing next to him, and
for sure. And how? I mean, that's just. I mean, whether you're male or female, that's just natural human instinct to want to win, I think, for a lot of people. And I find it so interesting. We have a new member that just joined the gym today, and he was telling me that we were talking about how, The Life of Rich Froning, the video, where he literally trains the entire day long. Yeah. And it's like, this is just a normal day of life for me. And he mentioned to me, I didn't know this, but he said that Patrick Vellner has a video out where he talks about how he only trains once a day.
Oh, really?
And I had no clue. I'm like, I can't wait to go watch this video now because I feel like he's my idol. Like, I want to be the person that trains once a day and can show the world that, like, hey, I can finish third at the games or second at the games or whatever he was, and I can win my regional, or I guess he was second to Matt Frazier, so he didn't win it, but whatever it was, that he can be extremely successful at what he does and only have to train once a day.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of crossover to regular life, too, that from the standpoint of stacking volume, you can do a lot of volume and you can inoculate your body to handling a lot of volume as long as you do take those deload times.
Yeah. Allow
your body to recover. Like, it's the same thing for me, like, even in business. Like, I can push really hard for a long time, but if I don't ever let my body process all of the work I've done, and you know what I mean, I'm like, at some point you can't expect that you're going to put in work forever and then that's going to create the same amount of output.
Absolutely. I mean, there's burnout that's going to occur and then a natural decline in production.
Yep.
One example I always use with my athletes that I coach is when you look at like a basketball player, and I use this analogy of shooting free throws. Basketball players will spend hours a day just sitting there shooting free throws, 200, 300 of them, just practicing getting better at free throws. What's the equivalent of a CrossFitter shooting free throws? It's doing like a 30-minute EMOM of 95-pound thrusters and double unders and assault bike calories or something. So even if you try to do something that you consider technique skill work, you're still having a inroad into your recovery and impacting your body's ability to adapt to this stuff. And that's a gnarly place to be. Like, when we practice as CrossFitters, we're also working out. There is no real equivalent to shooting free throws, but CrossFitters try to shoot free throws all day by practicing these movements, and it's just not the same.
Yeah, that's actually a really, really good way to look at it. So what have you found that helps with recovery?
Time off is number one. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, time off has to be the most important. Like, if you ever reach a point where there are multiple days in a row where you go into the gym and you're just not motivated to be in the gym, that's the number one sign that your recovery isn't there. And then what helps recovery, right? Diet.
Of course.
CrossFitters are notorious for thinking that if they just put calories in their body, they're going to recover. Mm-hmm. And they'll go out and they'll eat whatever. Like, it can be cookies, brownies, pizza, pasta, and it doesn't matter because they're like, it's cool, I'm working out so much, I just need the calories.
If the fire's hot enough, it'll burn anything, right? That's
right. So
the mentality.
So aesthetics wise, absolutely. Like, 100 grams of carbs from pasta is the equivalent of 100 grams of carbs from oatmeal. Mm-hmm. If you're just going for aesthetics.
Yep.
It's like a IIFYM type thing, right?
Right.
if it fits your macros.
And the problem with, keep going. Sorry.
So the problem with that is the quality of food is so shitty
Right.
that you're not actually getting much from it. Like, we've all had like a night probably where like we go to Sprouts or somewhere and we're like, oh, chocolate covered raisins or whatever your equivalent of chocolate covered raisins is, and you buy a pound of them and then you eat them all. And you're like waking up the next day and your head's cloudy and your stomach feels like crap and your gastrointestinal issues and all that. Those pound of chocolate raisins that you ate are not helping you recover. In fact, they're probably inhibiting your recovery because your gut is all messed up now.
Right.
So the difference in quality of food obviously is huge.
You see that a lot with low carb diets, because I've seen that personally. You know, when you do a low carb diet, you're really focused on the macro, and because you're focused on the macronutrients that you're getting, your body composition is actually looking good, right? You're not getting carbs, so like literally your body comp is improving, but without a focus on the micronutrients, there's so many phytochemicals and things that you're missing out on from a longevity, health, even recovery standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. So nutrition, quality of nutrition, absolutely. And along with that goes vegetables. Like, people need to eat like adults. I mean, everybody eats like a child these days. It's like dessert, yummy, pizza, like French fries, you know, like eat like an adult. Have some protein, have some veggies, have some starch.
Yeah.
Don't eat like a child. So
social media has done nothing for improving diet.
No, and IIFYM is great for body comp. Absolutely. Like, I was a huge proponent of IIFYM during my bodybuilding focus, and it worked wonders for me as far as the way that I appear.
Yep.
But it did nothing good for me as far as health. And it's easy to fall into that when all you're worried about is the way that you look.
Yep.
I think most people know the value of sleep now.
Mm-hmm.
And most people that prioritize exercise probably are not going out and blacking out and having really shitty sleep because they understand that that's not conducive to what their goals are. I think the nutrition side is probably more relevant, but if you're not sleeping 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep a night minimum, that's also not doing much for your recovery.
Yeah. When I was 22, I went through Athletes Performance Institute, API. They deal with a lot of like pro athletes will come in and like get ready for the combine or something like that. And I did this like analysis, and we realized I was working out more hours in the week than I was sleeping.
That's a lot of working out.
Yeah, I literally had like a 2-week period of that, and I don't know, at the time I thought it was cool.
How'd you feel?
Oh, well, I was 22, you know.
Right,
like,
you can do anything.
Yeah, it sucks, but like I can keep crushing, you know. Like,
it's just what you have to do. You convince yourself that it's what's necessary.
Yeah, and the thing is about getting older is that it will force you to reprioritize all the dumb shit you're doing.
Yeah.
Or you'll break for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I'm saying with this like 2 weeks of me doing this 3 times a week strength training program, and suddenly all the little nicks and dings I had from the Olympic lifting cycle have literally disappeared.
Mm. So with this cycle that you're doing now, how are you Are you focusing on the power lifts or?
Yeah, so it's we back squat. I back squat Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but it's oscillated volume and intensity.
Okay.
So Monday is like a 5x5. I'm starting it super light. It's like a 65% max start, which is quite easy for 5x5. And then Wednesday is a 2x5 at even lighter weight than Monday. And Friday is intensity, so I'm working up to a 5-rep max.
Okay.
So we squat 3 days a week. Monday, we'll also bench or strict press. And this is kind of modeled a little bit, just to give credit where credit's due. This is modeled a little bit after Mark Ripeto's Texas method.
Okay.
And what I really liked about that method when I started researching it was that it focuses on the big compound lifts. It has freedom for an advanced athlete like myself to add in some additional accessory volume at the end, which I like. Mm-hmm. And it also includes the Olympic lifts, which I considered mandatory. I would never embark on a program that didn't at least have some version of the Olympic lifts in it. So,
is that just because you like them, or do you recommend that for Gen Pop?
I would say it leans toward me liking them.
Okay.
And as far as Gen Pop goes, no, I don't think Olympic lifts are necessary. I think it's something that is probably a good thing if you know how to perform them or you have a coach around you that can help you perform them properly. But I do think there's no reason that General Pop couldn't do a hang high pull.
Yep.
And that way they engage triple extension and they get that same kind of feel of the movement in there without having to worry about the catch.
Okay.
So I was going to say that you mentioned research, which I know you've always done a ton of. In any question I have, I feel like you can reference tons of different articles or different websites, and you've actually introduced me to T-Nation, which I love.
Love them.
But how do you go about researching? Because there's just so much junk out there. How do you know what's valid and what's true? I know you do a lot of experimenting on yourself.
Exactly. I would say experimenting on myself is probably number one. I mean, the lifting community, as much as there's like a lot of different programs you can do, like there's Mark Ripeto's Starting Strength, there's CrossFit, there's
531.
There's 531, Wendler, there's 1,000 different ways of bodybuilding programming that you can do. Like, there's so much out there, but as much as there is out there, there's really like a pretty small sect of people that I would consider respectable. And I know I don't know all of them. There's no way I could possibly know all of them, but like when it comes to bodybuilding, I like Lane Norton's stuff a lot.
Yep.
I think I told you about Physique Science Radio as a podcast.
Yep,
those guys are awesome, right? So I respect a lot of what Lane Norton does. I really like how Lane Norton first of all, he has like 2 PhDs or something, so he's awesome in that way. Like that's, to me, that's respect.
Right.
But he also has a lot of guests on his show that are scientists, like Brad Schoenfeld, what I just referenced about that volume to volume time under tension thing. That was from a Lane Norton podcast. So I find like, in the bodybuilding world, there's like Lane Norton that I really like to follow. I follow some of the T-Nation guys.
You know Dr. Lonnie Lowry?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So he's on the Physique Science one as well.
Oh, yes.
Oh, no, he's on Iron Mind. Iron Radio. Yeah. So I listen to him too.
Super valid. Like
He's legit. He's a doctor.
Yeah.
So that's what I look for in that sense, is like in the bodybuilding world, it's so congested that I look for people that legitimately are scientists, so to speak, versus just lifters.
Yeah, the only thing is I think you have to find the people that do that and apply it, right?
Correct, yeah.
You get the egghead that doesn't know the application, that's, to me, almost just as bad as the bro guy that doesn't know a dick about what he's doing.
For sure. And Lane Norton's interesting, too, because he was a bodybuilder that's turned powerlifter. So he is able to speak to 2 different populations simultaneously, and he's also a guy that, like, squats over 600 and, like, whatever, pulls 700.
And he'll call a bunch of people out online and
right.
people.
He doesn't put up with any shit. Like, so I use him a lot. I like Lonnie Lowry. I subscribe to the Iron.
Iron Radio.
Yeah, Iron Radio. I like those guys. And then, the Ripeto thing for me is new. I always have actually been kind of anti-Ripeto, mostly because he's so opinionated.
Yeah.
And so forever I would listen to these podcasts or I would read articles by him and just be like, this dude is just screaming nonsense at people. And then I kind of started thinking about the approach that he's taking, and I looked at kind of some of his programs, and I don't think the starting strength method is ideal for someone that has experience, and it's called starting strength because it's meant for novice athletes. And then I found through researching starting strength, I found the Texas method, which is kind of like his intermediate advanced version of the starting strength program. And so that's kind of what I'm doing with this oscillation of volume, light, and intensity days. Adding in the Olympic lifts, adding in some weighted dips, some bent over rows, some weighted chins, and dumbbell bench press. So I've taken his Texas method program and kind of catered it a little bit toward the things that I like to do. So I think that he's great in that sense.
Are these people what you learn from them, or is it feeding into like the kind of the hybrid program you put together, or even the program in the gym for CrossFit? Or
it's a good question. Yeah. So right now the gym, San Diego Athletics here, is doing a version of my hybrid program. It has to be toned down a little bit because we're trying to fit it into an hour class.
Right.
So when I originally wrote the program, most of the 5 training days have like an A through F, 6 different parts that they do each day, and a lot of them are accessory work like weighted planks and hip extensions and stuff like that, or like AMRAP 5 minutes of 50 reps of double unders. You gotta get 50 unbroken, see if you can do it for 5 minutes. And I just had a kid hit 9 rounds of that, which is, I think, the best you could possibly do. So like the parts E and F are usually sections like that. So what I've done with the gym is just eliminate E and F, and I just give the gym A through D. And it's still kind of a struggle to fit it into an hour, but we've found it feasible.
That's kind of how OPEX programs.
Yeah, so I actually have my education through OPEX.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I went through the CCP program back when they were OPT.
Yep.
And I did that. I went to Scottsdale 3 times, took the courses, did all the online stuff. So that's where I got like the majority of my like CrossFit programming education.
Okay.
And then kind of to come full circle with it, the way that I trained from like 1998 to 2001, when I was like junior, senior in high school, was very similar to what Ripeto's philosophy is, which is 3 times a week full body training. So you choose a leg or a hip movement, you choose a upper body pull, and you choose an upper body push.
That's
and
how I worked out in high school.
You literally just do 3 lifts a day.
Yeah.
And that's what starting strength is, more or less. So it was weird for me to like, with all this hate in my heart that I had for Ripeto's opinionated nature,
Right.
and then to actually delve into it and read it and be like, holy shit, this is like how I trained back in the day, and this is where I set my base up. Like from 9th grade when I started training at 135 pounds to graduating high school at like 200 pounds, I gained 65 pounds, and I basically just trained 3 times a week full body.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all you need. I mean, if you're not a CrossFitter and you're not trying to shoot free throws all day and develop skills, then yeah, you just need to train 3 times a week full body.
Yep.
And that's enough for 95% of the population.
Yep. And then do you just undulate or periodize the volume within those 3 lifts?
Well, yeah, so it's not the same lifts every day. So with this program, like I said, it was squatting every day.
Yeah.
It's bench or strict press on Monday, and then it's the opposite of bench or strict press on Wednesday. So you're still getting an upper body push. And then you deadlift on Monday, you do weighted chins on Wednesday, and then you do either power clean or power snatch on Friday.
Okay.
So, and then you also, on Friday, you'll do bench or strict press. So you bench or strict press every day, you squat every day, and then you do some sort of upper body pulling or dynamic pulling every day.
And this is different than the programming you're putting on Instagram?
It is, yes. Okay. The program on Instagram is the hybrid program, and this is really just a 3 times a week strength-based program.
Gotcha. So we've covered kind of what you've done in the gym for San Diego Athletics, the CrossFit programming, even touched on the bodybuilding program I used to have here, touched on the online training that you do for individual customers, and then your Instagram feed, the kind of hybrid method for that, and then your personal training. So you've got a lot going on.
Yeah, we've got a lot going on right now. I mean, I love training. Like, this is, aside from the times where I gotta have quality time with the lady, I spend most of my time reading about this stuff, listening to podcasts, watching videos. And like right now with the Ripeto method, I'm trying to learn to low bar back squat. Yeah. I've trained for 20 years and I've never trained low bar back squat ever. So I'm trying to learn how to do it, and it feels weird and it's awkward. Mm-hmm. And I still can't get the bar in the right place sometimes, but I've been doing it for 2 weeks. So my thought is that the weights are going to continue to climb pretty steady, because anytime you try a new skill, part of it is adaptation to that. Right, exactly.
So based on all the things that Jenny just kind of went over the last 20 years of you training, if you could kind of boil it down, like what are the big, I guess like the biggest maybe lessons that you've learned as you've, kind of gone through CrossFit and bodybuilding and all these different things?
Number one has to be that no matter who you are and where you are in your journey, you have to focus on compound lifts. Big multi-joint movements like a squat, deadlift, press, chin, row. Things that work multiple muscles, right? Yeah. And CrossFit does a good job of that now. I think that CrossFit deserves credit for the fact that, like, when they first started out, it was just a Metcon, or it was strict press 3-3-3-3. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was mostly a Metcon to begin with an occasional strength day. And I think that the new version of CrossFit since 2012, 2013 maybe, is most of the good coaches are putting a priority on compound basic lifts. Yeah. So I think that's number one for sure. That you have to do the big lifts, you have to progress on the big lifts, you have to get stronger. Okay. Beyond that, I think most of the lessons learned are kind of as I've delved into with, focusing on recovery. Uh-huh. Like, unless you're a competitive athlete that is, you are making money from CrossFit, which is much less than it should be, I think you should probably focus on life. Yeah. You like no one really cares. Like, I think I finished like 486th in the open, or maybe it was 586th. I don't even know. But like, how much extra time would I have to put in to be a top 300,
A lot.
much less to be a top 200 or a top 100. Like every category you go through requires that much more out of your life.
It does.
And if you're a top 500 athlete in SoCal, you're doing okay. You're fine.
Yeah.
There's 10,000 dudes that compete. So like put the priority on life. Put the priority on things that matter. Like where are your priorities in life? Is it family, business, then training? Because that sounds pretty good to me.
Yeah.
If it goes like training, business, family, you might not have your family very long.
Yeah. Right. Well, and then how is training, to take it a step further, how is training enhancing those other priorities in your life? And if it's not, well, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, like if you can't go and have enough energy, like I said, to go out and play with your kids or go to the beach and ride waves and get in the ocean, like you're so beat up that you're sitting at home at 4 p.m. on a sunny day with ice packs on your knees, watching House of Cards, then you've probably got other things to worry about.
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds like you found a balance though. And the listeners can probably tell, I feel like you're a very structured person when it comes to the gym and fitness and your nutrition, and you've got everything pretty dialed in. But if, they knew your personality, you're very laid back and you're super easygoing. And so is there anything you want to share that kind of helps you be a little more easygoing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of medical marijuana. It's
Nice.
It's something that I do at night. I take 1 or 2 hits at night when I get off work. I mean, I'm at the gym all day, or I'm doing remote coaching, or I'm out being busy. And when I get home at night, some people like to have a drink. I prefer to take a hit of pot and let my mind unwind that way. Plus, it helps with sleep.
Yeah, it definitely helps with sleep. Are you familiar with any of the anti-inflammatory benefits of like CBD? And
Yeah,
marijuana?
for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I actually use some CBD rubs on any sort of sore body parts and stuff like that.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the medical marijuana dispensary, every time you buy something, they're like, and you get a free gift. And I always opt for the free like CBD cream.
Yeah, and do you find that it actually helps? Because I haven't really talked to many people that have experimented with it.
Yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I don't feel that it's much different than putting on like an icy hot or like a Bengay or something like that. Like it still gives you that cool tingly feeling.
Have you ever smoked it for more of a systemic anti-inflammatory?
I haven't. My dad's actually talked to me about that before. My dad he actually needs to smoke weed because he has long story, but he got hit by a snowboarder on the slopes years ago, and he ended up getting a stroke from it, and now he has to smoke to kind of stabilize and not have seizures as a result. It super sucks, but he's actually talked to me a lot about the benefits of CBD, and I haven't delved into that world at all.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something worth considering, because it doesn't get you high. Like if being high isn't something you like, but you want the benefits of it.
Where it doesn't have the psychoactive
Exactly.
part of THC, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard that you still feel relaxed,
That's
but you
what I've
don't feel
heard, too.
high.
Yeah. I'm in the military. I gotta tread lightly around that, but I want to do a whole fucking episode on it because I'm just so interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, you should probably find someone that's like an actual expert in that field.
Yeah, for
That
sure.
also might help you. I don't know about that one, but it might help you be able to eat more and hit your numbers.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a solid point, because the day that I had 6 perfect food bars in one sitting, I absolutely was quite high beforehand. So I find appetite is much harder without it. And on a kind of different topic, I also fast every day. So I have to eat my 3,500 calories for the day between 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. That's my feeding window.
Damn, you do a 6-hour feeding window?
Yeah.
Goddamn, okay.
Yeah.
Was that hard at first?
You know, I've been doing it for 5 years now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it started as an 8-hour eating window. I went from noon to 8 or 1 to 9 when I first started.
Yep.
And I would say the first 2 to 3 weeks were tough, but it's a mind over matter thing.
Yeah.
Like
It's like fad now, but you've been doing it for a long time.
I've been doing it for a while. Yeah, I think I was doing it even before I read Lean Gains and all the stuff from Berardi.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I really like about it more than anything is the mental clarity in the mornings. So I'll drink black coffee,
Yep.
or the creatine coffee from Lou Aviv,
Boom.
and like that plug,
Fucking loved it.
and so I'll just drink black coffee, no cream, no sugar, anything like that,
Yep.
and that doesn't affect the fast, so to speak. But the mental clarity without food, and I don't have any like research to back this up, although I've heard it kind of just spoken about, but the process of digestion requires resources.
Sure.
So when you eat, a lot of times people will follow eating with a little bit of like a downtick in energy and mental clarity.
Yep.
And I think that's more associated with overeating. And I know, like, my wife, for example, she can't not eat. Like, she feels like she's gonna just crash if she doesn't eat.
Yeah.
But for me, the mental clarity in the morning is the reason I continue to do it. Because I do most of my computer work in the morning from like 6:30 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Yep.
And I feel like if I just sit down and focus and drink coffee for 4+ straight hours, I can accomplish almost my entire day of work. And then I'll come into the gym, I'll work out at noon, get an hour and a half of training in on my training days. And then if I have more work to do, the workout kind of acts as like a bit of an endorphin rush, and I'm able to focus again for another hour or two. And then by 2 or 3 p.m., I'm done for the day, and I can start my feast.
So has your body got used to not eating before a workout?
Yeah, so I'm interested in that too. Like, because you're lifting, you're not doing just like slow, steady state cardio,
Right.
Yeah.
which you can get away with without calories. So I'm just interested when you're training without that caloric intake beforehand. Is it?
It's been so long since I've eaten beforehand that I don't even notice a difference.
Do you train empty stomach every day, basically?
Yeah. So I have a caffeine plus BCAA pre-workout thing that I take.
Okay.
And it has 4 carbs in it. So I guess like it's nominal in the grand scheme of things, but other than that, I pretty much work out fasted. If my workout exceeds, call it an hour, I'll usually start sipping on some like protein carb, like protein maltodextrin type thing
Yep.
toward the end of the workout. But in most days, I just get through the thing fasted, and then I'll have my protein maltodextrin, and then I'll wait an hour and I'll start eating it too.
So you did this before it got popular. Why did you start?
It's a good question. I don't actually know if I can recollect that answer right now.
Yeah.
My guess would be that it was a body comp thing.
Okay.
I think that it was probably about, okay, let's take it back to marijuana. I would eat a lot of food at night because of marijuana.
Yep.
And I would be so full in the mornings from this like massive feast that I would have at night that I think I just was like, man, I don't really even want to eat, and like maybe if I do want to eat, like I shouldn't eat because I'm gonna eat so much at night anyways. At some point I need to moderate it. So this is a way of me being able to do something I love, which is eat, and do a lot of it in a short period of time.
Yep.
And I still have to be careful with it because if I have 2,000 calories in a matter of like 15 minutes, my stomach isn't super happy with me.
Right.
But if I'm able to space over those 6 hours my 3,500 calories and eat like maybe 1,000 every 2 hours or something like that, I have no gastrointestinal issues or anything. And by stopping eating at 8 p.m., I still am able to digest properly before I go to bed at 10.
Okay. When you first started doing it, when did you notice immediately? Was it body comp or performance, and like how long until your body got used to it and kind of leveled out?
It took about 2 to 3 weeks to get used to it, which falls right into the it takes 21 days to form a habit thing.
Yeah.
So it was about 2 to 3 weeks. I remember being really hungry and just telling myself that I need to drink water. And every time I would get hungry, I would have water, and within 5 to 10 minutes, the hunger would dissipate, and then it would come back. I'd drink a little more water. But yeah, I would say the thing I noticed first and foremost was body comp. And that's actually the thing that like a lot of the guys in the gym, they're always asking me like, dude, how do you remain so lean when you eat so much food?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, it's all about the fasting. And then it's, oh, I can never do that. Like, I have to eat in the morning.
Yeah.
It's like, well, do you really have to eat in the morning, though? Like, are you going to just, like, wither over and die if you don't eat in the morning?
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure you can survive for, like, 30 days without food.
Yeah. I cut out breakfast because of the mental clarity piece, but
Yeah.
I completely agree. But, dude, if you fucking tell people you don't eat breakfast, they're like, most important meal of the day? What?
That's so old school.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like carbs make you fat, right?
Right. And then there was that documentary, Facing the Fat. I don't know if you've seen that.
I have not.
A dude fasts for 54 days. It's on Amazon. And he actually had like a huge reduction, increase in lean muscle mass, huge reduction in fat, and like had like all these increased biomarkers.
Wait, he
Increase?
fasted? Like, he had to eat something for 54 days.
Water. He did smart water. 54 days.
And he increased lean body mass?
He let me say this right. He just decreased. Wait, no, he did increase. Yeah, he increased lean body mass. That's right.
He's working out during this?
No.
Okay.
He doesn't
How
work out.
do you increase lean body mass without a calorie surplus?
Can't you decrease fat?
Yeah, you decrease fat. Yeah,
to a huge point. Yeah, that's what
so you're saying he increased the ratio of lean body mass to fat. He didn't actually increase lean body mass.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's a super interesting documentary because a lot of people are like, you can't do that, basically, and that goes to your point of like, no, you can.
Right.
You just need the mental fortitude to do it.
Yeah. And I've done the 3-day fast as well. Like 3 is the most I've ever gone like straight in a row fasting.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things that they taught us at OPEX. They're like, that's really important to do because they were like, any of your athletes that you coach, when they finish regionals and their bodies are just massacred from the training leading up to it, plus like the 3 days of hell, make them do a 3-day fast.
Really?
Because it resets a lot of the biomarkers. It increases insulin sensitivity.
Yep.
It does a lot of these things like that you just completely lose throughout the process of overtraining leading up to it. And it allows you to just kind of stay away from the gym and, you go for walks and shit. Tim Ferriss talks about this a lot too. He'll like fast for, I think he does a 16-8, but I think he does a 24-hour fast once a week.
He does.
Something like that. And he's like, I'll literally go out on a 4-hour walk and I'll just take business calls while I'm walking for 4 hours while he's fasted.
Yep.
Like, there's extremely successful people doing it. There's extremely, like, business-wise, there's extremely successful athletes doing it. I think it's something that's worth a try, especially for males. I've read some studies that show that females don't respond quite as well to it as males do, and I'm not 100% sure on
Might have
that
to do
exactly.
with the hormones.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the hormone thing, but I don't know which hormones specifically. But I would encourage males to try it if it's something you're curious about.
And it just gives your body a break, right? If you're constantly eating, it's fighting bacteria, it's doing all of those things, and it just gives it your time to...
Right, digestion. Like, most people eat 16 hours a day and fast for 8.
Yep.
But if you reverse that and you fast for 16 and eat for 8, that's an extra 8 hours a day that your body's not having to process foods and put your digestion system overworking.
Yeah. I guess maybe a little skeptical or just interested in how it would work for recovery. So I would get that it would decrease inflammation, right?
Yeah.
But it seems like your body is going to need those calories in order to rebuild, especially after something like
I'm eating the same amount of calories. Oh, you're saying for the people that are just finishing regionals.
Yeah.
Yeah, so first of all, when they're at regionals, they're going to be way overeating.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a calorie surplus because they have to fuel their workouts. But yeah, I guess I could go reference, and we can do this again in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
But I can go. You bring up a good point. The inflammation side, absolutely.
Yeah.
The calories, they do help. I'm sure there's some processes of metabolism and stuff that go into it. But I would definitely have to go back and reference kind of the stuff that I learned.
Yeah, I'm interested just because when I do these ultra marathons, I way overeat during them in order to keep going, and then it's like for the first 3 days post race, I'm always trying to figure out what's like the fastest way to get me back on track because you're fucking starving for days, you know what I mean? And your testosterone's crashed. So I've been experimenting with taking out carbs at that time and just different things, but I was just curious about that.
What have you found has worked best for you thus far?
Taking out carbs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going to like a kind of Atkins style diet.
Atkins, yeah, not necessarily keto.
Okay.
Definitely increased fat just for like the hormone support, but I'm not worried about actually like eating too much protein and having that convert to sugar or anything like that. So it's like just high fat, high sugar, or high fat, high protein.
Right.
Take out the carbs just to decrease inflammation. So far, I've been pretty successful. Of like I can run like we'll say like 100K on a Saturday, and I can train again on like Tuesday. That's like how close I've
Really?
gotten it. Yeah.
That's crazy. It seems like you found a successful model for yourself at least. So much variance in individuals, but I also think there's a difference in like what you're doing with an ultra where you're going 100 miles. That is a completely different impact on your energy systems than doing CrossFit regionals would be.
Sure, yeah. That's true.
Those guys are probably working out for a total of like 2 hours over the weekend.
That's true. That's very true. Yeah. Cool. So based on everything that you've done, this is the Lionheart Kicker. We ask it in every episode. Based on all the experiences you had and everything you've done, if you could give blanket advice and we're guaranteed that it would be translated to every language, everybody would hear it. They might not all follow it, but they would definitely hear your advice. What would you tell people?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Probably some sort of movement every day. I mean, just on a fitness level, like on an esoteric level, like let's do good and be good to each other, and
you can do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but fitness wise, I think if you move every day, and you know, I just got off talking about how I only am training 3 times a week now. So to say move every day is a little bit of a contrast to that, but I think the movement doesn't have to be intense, nor should it be. I think that taking a walk along the beach, if you're lucky enough to live in that area, or doing some sort of 10-minute flow with your body in the morning just to kind of loosen up and stretch out a little bit. Just some sort of something to get the blood flowing in your body every day, because too many people are just, you know, right from bed to breakfast to car to work, back to home to watch TV, back to bed.
Yeah. And
there's just no movement in their life. And I think that even getting up and going for a 10-minute walk in the middle of your work day, or something like that has incredible benefits as far as it relates to happiness hormones, and controlling dopamine and serotonin levels in your life. So yeah, just some sort of casual movement every day, something that you enjoy.
Yep. And I would even say, like, adding that constant movement would even be better than inserting a 3-minute intense Fran in the middle of that and then back to your desk.
Oh yeah.
That's where we drop the ball a lot.
Like bend down, touch your toes, and reach overhead 20 times.
Yeah.
Like just something like that, right? And just get your body moving. Understand that if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Yeah. Is that true? If you don't use it,
I mean, one of the things I always say is if you do it every day, you'll do it forever.
Yeah.
And I use the squat sit as one of the examples of that, because it's not like you'll be able to sit in a squat for 10 minutes when you're 60 and then you're going to turn 61 and you're like, oh, I'm 61 now, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
If you do something every day, you'll do it forever.
For sure.
And that goes for movement, that goes for using your brain, and that goes for everything else in life as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. Cool, man. Well, thanks for being on. I really appreciate you.
It was an honor. I'm really glad. Thanks, guys.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Lionheart Radio. I hope that the information from today's show will make you fitter, happier, and healthier. For the show notes of this episode and every episode, head to www.lionheartrad.io. Yep, just like Lionheart Radio. And please, if you have the time, head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. It really helps us to know that we're on the right track in delivering you reliable information and value. As always, feedback is welcomed. If you have any comments on the show or would like to suggest a guest, send me an email at rick@luavive.com. That's LUAVIVE.com. Thanks for your support, and we will see you next time.
Bitch, I feel good. Don't I look stupendous? My shine is so endless, and shit you can do to end this. Even when I'm dead, niggas still gon' bump that chip shit. Coke, white, Escalade on cinches for you dipshits. So you won't forget this. Midwest nigga be the coldest. Cleveland